Welcome everyone to MailFuzz TV. I am Peter and today I'm going to be talking about Squid Game Season 2 Episode 2. It's called Halloween Party. So spoilers for the episode as always. And I think it's fair to say that this one isn't as strong an episode as the first one, which is not to say it's bad. I think there's some solid progression and it sets up the rest of the season fairly nicely. And there's a cool little twist to a new character that's introduced by the end. Not like anything earth-shattering, but it's a nice little moment. And it spends some time getting to know the character, which is probably the most interesting part of the episode. Bizarrely, I actually think the main plot with Gi-hun finally kind of teaming up with Jun-ho and them building their plan to try and find the front man. Which notably, Jun-ho, he's been honest about a lot of things about season one and like going to the island and infiltrating and all that. But the one thing he did lie about was knowing what the face of the front man was, and therefore also lying that that's actually his brother. Right? He's left that one personal detail out of the explanation. But otherwise, they're kind of very quickly like working together. There's a little bit of mistrust where he tries to arrest Gi-hun, and then Gi-hun doesn't really trust him. But as soon as like they've shared a bit of the stories together, they kind of realize that they're on the same side. I mean, I did enjoy some of the reveals early on that Gi-hun has bought the entire building, which we kind of knew, I suppose, but he's knocked down like a bunch of walls to create a shooting range across like all the old apartments. He's got a big collection of guns that he's been storing. All of his money, well, I don't know if it's all of it, but a lot of his money is physically there in a big pile that he's just been kind of taken from, so it's off the grid. Also, it turns out that the sort of the henchman character, he is back. I want to say his name was Woo-sok, but I could be misremembering that. I think that's what Jun-ho called him. But he's the one that was playing rock paper scissors last episode, so he didn't actually die. The recruiter actually kept him alive as per the results of the game. He was just tied up in a different room near the apartment. So he's also already in. Like Jun-ho wants to take down the game. He wants to take down the game as well, the henchman, because he was close to his boss. He was like a brother to him. He officiated his wedding. So even he's not like in it for the money. Which I thought the comedy beat there was going to be that he's like, oh, I'm in, but I'll also take the money. He doesn't actually say that. He's like, no, I care about this. I'm going to help you take these bastards down. So, yeah, there's a card inside the recruiter, and that leads to kind of like, hey, it's kind of an invitation to a nightclub on Halloween night. And they basically prep a few things. They hire some mercenaries as backup who are going to follow, and they take out one of Gi-hun's teeth and put in a fake tooth that has a tracker on it. So kind of the plan B, that's quite clear from the get-go as soon as they introduce this tracker, is that if he gets taken to the island, if that's where the front man takes him after this meeting, then everyone else will be able to find out where it is. They'll be able to follow it. Now, I feel like there's going to be a hiccup there. If I was to guess, I would say that maybe they've got like blockers for any transmissions on the island, like cell phone blockers, that kind of thing. And I wonder if just what they've already got there for that is going to also disrupt this tracker, which is just a GPS chip, basically, from what I could tell. So, I think this stuff is all fine, and I enjoyed like seeing some of the scenes play out and got a little chuckle here or there. But for the most part, it's kind of the duller element of this plot compared to the first episode, where the hunt for the recruiter was genuinely quite an entertaining story that had like different stages to it, and there was a bit of intrigue as we got to him, and then like learning about who he was and how he treated people and how he actually is really into all these different games and making people do stuff. I felt like I was constantly learning something about someone. Whereas here it was more about just looking for the guy in the mask, and there've been crowds of people, and it almost felt like they kind of rushed to this point a little bit in this episode, which is weird, because on the one hand, I think that they could have condensed it down, but on the other hand, if they were going to try and sell me that there was maybe like an uneasy alliance between the two main characters, I don't think I got enough to actually get the sense that there was any like mistrust or anything that like where they're kind of hesitant to trust each other. It kind of felt like after a couple of scenes, it's like, no, we're just both in this now. And that made it feel a little bit simple, I think, compared to maybe what I was expecting or what I would have hoped for, but just based on how this show usually handles its characters. I didn't really feel like the journey from the start of this episode to the end of the episode when, Gi-hun's in the limo and he's making his case to the front man who's talking to him via intercom. He turns out to be in the front seat of the limo at the end, but he's talking to the pig. I think it was like a gold pig. I can't remember. Whatever animal it was. It's an intercom system though. So basically, he goes to Plan B when he realizes that the mercenaries have been taken out of the picture. They're not killed. They're just their tires get shot by the sniper. Junho's car had a little explosive. Again, not like it didn't blow up the car, but it just took out enough of the inner workings to stop him from following. So when he realizes he's on his own, they can still hear what he's saying, though. They can still hear the conversation, or at least his side of it. And he basically just switches to Plan B and says, all right, I want back in. Put me back in the games. So we know that he's doing that primarily so that he can be traced to the island and they can maybe do something about it. He's kind of sacrificing himself a little bit, but he sells it to the front man as, oh, I'll be a winner who came back and that'll be entertaining for your clients, for the rich people who come and watch the show, which, they talk a little bit about in this episode. Jun-ho brings up seeing one of them, but it's not something to go into too much. I do appreciate that Gi-hun isn't like, oh, if I kill the front man, that's it, it's all over. He flat out says, no, killing one person will not stop this. This has to be something wider, which is an interesting response to Junho's question at the time, actually, because he's asking because he's worried that he's going to try and kill his brother, which I'm sure he's got mixed feelings on. Like, it's not like he's in a good place with his brother right now, but, it makes some sense that he still feels mixed about someone assassinating him for obvious reasons. There is one scene with Jun-ho and his mother where she gets kind of sad about the brother being gone still. And I actually had a little trouble following the line of conversation here. I think what they were saying is that his brother gave a kidney to Jun-ho so that he could live, right? Yeah, he had kidney troubles at some point. And then sometime later, his brother's wife, the front man's wife, got sick and couldn't be saved. And it seemed like the mother was guilt-tripping Jun-ho that because he'd already got his brother's kidney, he couldn't give it to his wife. At least that was the vibe, just based on the way Jun-ho was reacting and kind of getting upset that he was being made to feel guilty. But there was also something here about the frontman character, the brother, taking a bribe. And I'll be honest, I didn't really follow what how these things all connected in the conversation. I don't know if there's something I'm forgetting from season 1 that fills it in, that makes it easier to understand, or what, but I didn't quite get what they were saying here. So by all means, if I missed something in that conversation, please do enlighten me in the comments. But, setting, again, further trying to develop his character a little bit and build it up. So, I mean, it being Halloween, getting our first glimpse of the pink tracksuits with the masks as they're walking through the Halloween crowd, it's a fun visual. I think I can see what they're doing here. They're kind of drawing out and they're building up to getting back to the games where, episode 1 is about finding the recruiter. Episode 2, we get our first glimpses again of the tracksuit soldiers and the front man at the very end. And kind of we're getting more little bits of it before we get the full-on game again. Presumably next episode, based on where this one ends. But I will say, I don't think this episode had the intrigue or... I had so much to say about the recruiter and about the way he operates and what his view in the world was. How indoctrinated was he into this based on everything going on. I don't think I have really that much to say about the main plot here. Even, and I'm not saying that he should doubt him, but Jun-ho just kind of accepts that Gi-hun didn't kill the recruiter quite quickly, and it accepts that it was a game of some kind that went on. And I'm not saying I want him to doubt him and to sort of draw out that necessarily, but it just felt like everything went really smoothly and easily in terms of them two kind of teaming up. And my cats are knocking things over. That's not even in this room, but that was loud, whatever it was. So I'm going to go punish them later. But anyway, I think the more interesting plot in this episode probably is the subplot with the new character that we get introduced to here. And I don't know how to pronounce this entirely. It's No Yule, or maybe Noel. When I first saw it, I thought, is that just pronounced like the word Noel, like Christmassy Noel? But I don't think so. I'd say No Yule if I was to guess, but it's not something that's rolling off my tongue easily, I have to say. But she's introduced working at a like theme park or like a fairground style place, and she dresses up in like one of the mascot characters and hands out lollipops to the kids, that kind of thing. And we get introduced to her. She actually crosses paths with Gi-hun briefly, because Gi-hun, they kind of follow up that Gi-hun is still trying to fulfill his promises from season 1, which I did like them touching on this, that he's still trying to get Se-buk's mother out of North Korea, and he's trying to like plead to get that done, and he's also trying to reunite her with the little brother character. He also tries to call his daughter, and we also see the other, his old friend's mum again, looking after the kids. So, we get all these little tied up sort of like, hey, these things are all still going on. He still cares about them. He's not forgotten about his promises. I like that for the sake of like still liking the character. But the new character here, No Yul, she, as we've learned, was in North Korea and was able to defect, but in the process of doing so, her child, a baby, was left behind. And the first time we meet her, there's a really interesting little moment, actually, the first time we meet her at the theme park, where this little kid with a red hat, like it's like a strawberry themed hat, is enamored with the character that she's playing, right? She's dressed up in like a big pink teddy bear, I think it is. And she's enamored with her. And there's a scene where this kid wanders into the dressing room where all these like employees, all these actors have went into their dressing room and taken off the big like heads that they're all wearing and all this big stuff. And they're basically all complaining about how hot it is. Like it's a summer day. Well, it's not a summer day, it's October. But like, it's Korea again. I don't know how hot it gets in Korea in October, but they're all sweating because of these big costumes. And they're complaining. And there's actually kind of an oddly sweet moment when this little kid walks in and they realize there's a kid in the room, where every single actor, there's like maybe half a dozen of them, all quickly put their masks back on and all start being in character again to try and keep up the illusion. I thought that was quite interesting. Just as a kind of a sweet gesture, and to try and not let the reality of like how crap life is affect this little kid who's here for the magic. And I can't help but notice, this is where I've got a bit more interesting sort of like thoughts or analysis to kind of at least think about. I mean, you can agree or disagree with my take on this, but one, I think the fact that she dresses up for the theme park is actually a bit of foreshadowing for the reveal at the end, because she is working here as one of the employees. She is not one of the customers. She's not one of the players in the game, to compare it directly to the Squid Games. She is someone who is working for the establishment in this case. I think it's just a bit of foreshadowing, if nothing else. But I also think this idea of like, oh, the kid can't see who we really are, let's all hide. It's sweet in the context of what this is for the little child, but it's this idea of the anonymity. You know what word I'm trying to say? I just can't say it. Anonymity. I felt close. Whatever. It felt like that it was important to them. And then the one guy comes in complaining, not noticing her, and then quickly tries to like course correct again as well. And it's kind of this interesting thing of being shielded from the reality of what everything actually is. Which obviously that's not what the Squid Games are like. They're all, I mean, well, it starts off that way where most of the contestants don't know that they're actually playing for life and death. But once they're into it, they know what the Squid Games are. Like they understand the danger, at least after the first round, anyway. Which is actually curious. Like, does Gi-hun tell them? Does he like warn everyone that this is serious and dangerous, or does he try to? Maybe they don't believe him, because yeah, I mean, it's pretty far fetched, perhaps, to believe that they're going to be shot or killed for failing a round of a game. But maybe he tries to, or maybe he keeps it a secret that he was already in a game. Maybe it wouldn't be good for him if they found out he was a winner previously. Maybe a lot of them try to like follow him and become his like little posse because they think he can lead them to victory, even though there can only be one winner. I don't know. There's some interesting ideas going forward with him returning to the games that I'm going down that train of thought. But anyway, back to the new character, No Yul. She has a little moment here though, and this further adds into the idea of the masks and the costumes shielding the true reality and shielding the things that they're trying to hide, thematically at the very least, if not literally. Where when she's interacting with the kid in the dressing room and waving and doing the little hand gestures, and the kid gives her a picture that they've made of them right together, right, a little crayon drawing, and she's very pleased and sort of points and sort of acts in character. But as she's doing that, the kid notices on her wrist some scars, some what looks like attempted suicide scars. And obviously her arm pulls back and tries to hide it, and it's like, oh no, the reality's seeping through, have to shield from there. And we find out from here, when she goes to the same broker that Gi-hun was going to see, that she's still like paying him money, every money she's earning, because she's living in her car. For the first time we see her, she's living in her car and she's been told to move by the police. Even though she's got a job, even though she's making money, all of the money she is making is going to this broker in the hopes that somehow her child is still alive. And the broker just tells her, look, it's been years. The kid had no parents. I mean, there's no like guarantees that the kid's definitely dead, but there's absolutely nothing to suggest that they're alive. And if they are alive, like, who knows if they have the same name, like, you kind of have to just accept and forget that the kid ever existed. Like, you have to move on. Like, there's nothing, because to be fair, the broker's not an asshole. He's very sympathetic, and he doesn't take the money. He pushes the money away. It's actually a really interesting pair of scenes, because he also just rejected more money from Gi-hun. This guy is like, he's like, hey, you guys keep paying me too much. I've done the job you paid me for. Stop giving me more money. He's actually a very likable character in his own weird little way. But yeah, later on, tragedy strikes when this kid, there's like a nice little build up. We see an ambulance arrive at the theme park just as this character No Yul is quitting her job. She's getting ready to go, and seemingly because she's been given a card, there was a scene where someone came up to her car and handed her the little invitation card. But of course, the reveal at the end is that she's not actually one of the players. She's recruited here, possibly to go back, if not, I don't know if this is the first time, because the way she burned the card afterwards, it felt kind of like a secret agent burning the message of like, okay, let's destroy the evidence, and I'll go back to the Squid Games. But yeah, the reveal at the end is because she goes into a truck where it's like cubicles where they're all getting changed into their their pink suits and their masks and all that, and that's what the episode ends on. It's kind of a neat little reveal at the end. And it's interesting because, like, to get back to what I was saying about the kid with the ambulance, is that this kid had collapsed at the theme park. And there's a neat little moment here, actually, where just before that happens, this kid's at the theme park, all the characters are walking through, and the pink teddy bear character doesn't pay the kid any notice, and the kid gets sad. And then it's revealed after that it wasn't her. It was actually kind of the guy that was complaining before, who was filling in for her. And she is just left. And both the manager and this guy comment that her attitude, like, she's been working here for 2 years and she never talks to anyone. She sticks to herself. She's not friendly at all. Just stays to herself. And they kind of comment that it's a miracle she's like made it this far with that kind of attitude. But she sees the kid being carted off in an ambulance, sees the red hat's been left behind, and does a whole like sympathetic thing where you kind of like grow to like the character. And obviously she has lost a child, potentially. She's lost a child, at least in a physical sense. If not, the child might just be dead. But either way, she's away from her child. Something that a few characters in this show have been, between Gi-hun and other characters that have been brought up. She takes the hat to the hospital, and without anyone really seeing her, like, sneaks in, puts the hat on the bed, and the dad like finds the hat on her bed when he comes back in. But it's this very kind of like gesture, this emotional gesture from someone who is, maybe reaching out and kind of missing their own child and seeing this child in need and doing something, nice. Like maybe she's imagining like this is what her kid might be like now or would have been like a few years ago, depending on what age they are. It's a really sweet, sympathetic thing, and it's really just all designed for the most part to make you really look at her as a sympathetic, somewhat tragic character that you feel empathy for, you feel bad for, so that when she puts on the outfit at the end and we find out, oh no, she's one of the baddies, you feel like a pang of like, oh no, I sympathize with one of those characters now. And it also opens this idea for a bit further analysis. And they kind of, hinted at this in the first season as well. But now that we're actually getting to know one of the characters under those masks in a more intimate way where we get to know her life, just like one of the players, it's becoming clear that even the people who are wielding the guns and have the masks on that are enforcing the rules and the laws of the Squid Game are also just other unfortunate people who are being used by the higher ups, the powers that be, the rich, whatever you want to call them. Even if she's made a choice knowing what she's going into to go and do this, like I say, she seems to know where she's going, and like, she's not surprised by anything when she's getting into that truck, so it seems like she's done this before. It feels like to me that she either is like doing this because the game's runners have promised her or think that they'll help her maybe get her kid back, maybe there's like an incentive in that sense, or even if that's not the case, even if it's nothing to do with an incentive or a hope for something, that this is just her taking her anger out on the world by going and being this and like fulfilling this role. That even in and of itself is the idea of the higher ups manipulating the masses and the ones who are upset by turning them on the other unfortunate, right? By turning them into the enforcement part of like in the same way that like political leaders and rich people will convince a lot of people to support them even when their best interests aren't at heart, and turn their misery and their sadness and their disappointment and their unfortunate side of life into kind of fuel, flame those fires to make them serve a purpose that benefits the higher ups. And it keeps the poor versus the poor, or the unfortunate versus the unfortunate, in this case. I think there's definitely some interesting thematic touches here of learning exactly what the motivations in a personal level for one of these characters is, and how we can maybe extrapolate from that, yeah, maybe some of them are just assholes, but some of them might actually be people who are in a really bad place because of the life they've had up until this point, and how that's been kind of weaponized against others. Or who knows, maybe she'll be so vicious and such a hard ass with the other characters. Maybe it'll be a tragic story of just like how far gone she is. It's hard to say at this point, but I do think there's like storytelling potential there. So no, that's kind of my main takeaway from this episode was that plot and like the doors it kind of opens from a storytelling perspective. The main plot is fine. It's just not exciting, or like, it was all just kind of serving an inevitable conclusion of we're getting back to the games, and all of the interesting stuff about the journey to there was all in the last episode for me. I think the first episode was hands down better than this, but I do think the B plot in this episode was also kind of a star and has a lot of potential for the rest of the season. So yeah, let me know what you thought of this one in the comments below. Like, subscribe, ding the bell for notifications. All that stuff does help out if you can do it. And of course, you can support most of all being over to patreon.com/MailFuzzTV and help keep all the content coming with a little bit of monies every month. That's both on this channel, and it also helps Mail Fuzz Movies, where all the movie podcasts live. Go check out that channel if you haven't. But that is me, so thank you very much for joining me. I do appreciate it. Keep watching TV. Have you got any vanilla?